Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Templeton Community Service District Board of Directors meeting. It's Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. May we have a roll call, please?
Directors Fardonish.
Here.
Gardini.
Here.
Logan.
Here.
Pearson.
Here.
And Peterson is absent.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and reporting out of closed session, which was at the November 7th, 2023 board meeting. There is no action to report on at this time. Order of business, we only have one item, so I don't know that anybody wants to change our order on the agenda. And public comments, I don't believe we have anyone on our Zoom call, nor do we have anyone present in the room. So we'll move to the consent agenda. We have 5 items on the consent agenda this evening. The minutes of the November 7th board meeting, the treasurer's report for September 2023, and a budget amendment for the fire out of county assignments, and resolution number 22-2023, revision to the board bylaws. And then the last item is a cancellation of the January 2nd, 2024 board meeting. And I would like to pull the minutes, and I don't know if any other board member would like to pull any item for discussion.
I would probably for discussion, the budget amendment for the fire department.
So you'd like to pull item C?
Yes.
Okay. And any other items that anyone would like to pull? Okay, can I have a motion then to approve item B, the treasurer's report? Item D, the resolution for the revisions to the bylaws, and item E, the cancellation of the January 2nd, 2024 meeting.
I'll make it.
Okay,
I'll second.
so we have a motion made by Director Fardonish and seconded by Director Giardini. Can we have a roll call, please?
Directors Fardonish.
Aye.
Gardini.
Aye.
Logan.
Aye.
Pearson.
Aye.
And Peterson is absent.
Okay, so that motion passes. We'll go to the minutes of the meeting. There was one thing that I just wanted to comment on just for clarity. It was actually under the director's report. The first item where we were talking about the fire department. And the way it's reading, it's saying that we were going to have a discussion about the budget. It was really what we were talking about was the financial model, because the last time the fire committee looked at that, the numbers in that financial model was from March of 2023. So the recommendation was to update it with the end of the fiscal year numbers and then bring it to this committee, which was dependent upon the audit report being approved. So what I'm recommending is that it reads, let's see exactly where it's at. Where the last sentence, and that's actually the second line in the last paragraph, or the first paragraph, it says the board will take another look at the budget, taking into account updated figures provided by the audit that will be completed by then. I'm recommending that it just simply say the board will take another look at the financial model for the fire department with last year's fiscal year figures after the completion of the audit.
That's not what I meant though. When I said that, I meant the budget. That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Oh, I thought I was talking about this meeting.
No, it's
it
under
says
Director
Dr.
Giardini, and I'm the one that stated all that.
Okay, so you want to look at the budget?
Mhm.
Because my understanding, we were looking at the financial model, because at the committee meeting, we looked at the financial model. that had
Understand.
figures from March of 2023.
I understand that, but when I made this, I
So-
said the budget,
So which budget are you wanting to look at for clarity? Are you looking at last year's budget
the fire department budget.
for this fiscal year?
Budget in total of all the departments, because I wanna have like a general idea of all. We just go through and we approve the budget in June. We don't look in depth at different department budgets. And so we have a deficiency or some large items coming up in the fire department. And yes, we decided to, at the fire committee, bring that financial model back to the board. But also I wanted to look at the complete budgets of all the departments and see how they're all integrated and look more in depth at them versus just stamping approval in June.
So just for clarity, are you looking at this year's budget is what you're wanting to look at, this fiscal year or last fiscal year?
I think we're just looking at the budgets of the departments as in a brainstorming, like, okay, this is where the revenue comes from, this is how it's spent. How are the interactions between the departments? What can we do to keep all the departments alive? What did they spend last year? What did they spend this coming year? To do a financial meeting in depth at the project. That's what I meant by this.
Okay, but I thought in the discussion it was the financial model, because I remember referencing the financial model.
Right, and I did say that we were going to bring that financial model back. I agreed with that, but I wanted to look at the budgets,
Okay,
as I often request.
okay. For clarity, again, this fiscal year's budget,
I'm saying,
but budgets are like a snapshot.
I know what a budget is.
But I'm, okay. I'm just trying to help staff clarify what it is, because last year's numbers, it's like, once the audit's done, those numbers are closed out.
I think it's like a historical overlook of last year being the most recent, but with the years and kind of trends and historical issues and future projections. So it might have encompassed the model, but it also would be an overall looking, I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth, but just kind of a reoccurring pattern of issues and how we can address that when we're looking at a model saying that these are what the future numbers are going to look like, and trying to address that kind of on a bigger picture level.
So
But I understand it.
are you saying for the fire department, or are you saying for everything?
For all the departments.
For all the departments?
Okay.
Okay, but okay. So are you satisfied with what it's saying here?
Well, I often request that we have an in-depth session discussing budgets. And it never gets taken anywhere. So, we'll take another look at the budget on December 19th for the fire department. And once again, I'm asking that our board, as a board, meet outside of just the budgets in May, June, when we do them, and take a look at them to see what we can do. See where revenue is generated, see where expenses are, see, I don't know, ideas, brainstorming, don't be just a stamp approval, but actually brainstorm and be fiscally responsible, be fiscally analytical, fiscally innovative, I don't know. Work as a team to look at what problems, we're having. One of them that came up in our recent discussion was the solar situation. So there's many things going on.
Yeah, but going back to this minutes, you're saying that this is what you said and you're satisfied with it.
Well, I would like to take a look into account the updated figure provided by the audit, meaning the audit covers all the departments. So if the audit then covers all the departments, so then I think what I'm saying is covered in this.
Okay, okay. So I would still like to add that we look at the financial model for the fire department.
That's not what was,
I did discuss it at the meeting that we held, but it's not reflected here, because there's a difference between the budget and the financial model.
Was it brought under the context under this direct reports? I just
Because
don't
I
recall.
mentioned that we couldn't, that the last time we looked at that model, it was March of 2023. Those were the figures.
I think you're correct, so we could add in there are some large budget items coming up that will greatly affect the solvency of the fire department, and to discuss the model, and the model be brought to the board too.
Because because I'm hearing two things. You're saying this is fine, this is what I said, but I also remember the financial model, and you're agreeing with that, because when we had the fire committee meeting, we were looking at March of 2023 figures.
Can we instruct maybe staff, since the meeting's recorded, to just verify that at the time?
We did.
Okay.
So the question came up last week about did the minutes reflect the meeting? There was you might recall, the minutes are intended to be very short, and the recording is the complete record. The term budget was used in that discussion, as was the term financial model. There was not really there was discussion back and forth primarily by board members, Giardini and Logan under this discussion. And I walked away recalling that we were gonna have the financial model presented at the same time the fire engine purchase was presented, or immediately prior to that. So at the time, 2 weeks ago, we thought that would be on November 19th. So, I'm sorry, December 19th. So I think it'd be fair to say, to just put after the word budget, and financial model, if in fact that's what you believe the remarks were regarding.
Well, if that's what the video shows, then that's what was said.
Yeah, there's like, there was, I mean.
There's no point in challenging the video.
Yeah, they were both mentioned.
Okay.
And it seemed the overall conversation was more so about the financial model, but budget was mentioned in that span.
I would be satisfied by having that just inserted, the financial model.
So I guess you guys were talking about two different things.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
because what I recall, you were mentioning something about after the water buffer, you wanted to take a look at, so that's what you were talking about. So sometime you wanna look at in February, March, after we have that meeting, you wanna look at okay.
Right,
Which I agree with that, because that's, makes sense at
that
that
makes
time.
sense at
Yeah.
that time,
Okay.
right.
Alright, so because I just, alright,
Yeah.
okay, alright, I'm okay with,
Okay.
okay, if we do that sometime in February, March, and then.
I mean, so long as it's in the video and that's what was brought up, then
Yeah, I
that
mean, we
makes
can't
sense
change
to
the
add
minutes
it,
if
yeah.
they were
Change it,
minutes, so I
but-
just wanna get.
The minutes will, if this is what I would recommend, the term that it would remain as is, but before that comma, which right now is right after the word budget, we put and financial model, comma. That would be the only
That would
changes
be
to
it.
the minutes. Based on this brief discussion, you could talk about future items at the end of the meeting.
Well, that brings me to something, because, I don't know, should our minutes say that these are summaries and that the actual records, recordation be looked at? Because I listened to the finance committee meeting twice now, and what's on the report is not inclusive of everything that went on at the meeting, and so I feel like there should be a preamble to our minutes that say, that these minutes are I mean, in reality, and I don't know, you would know more than me, I mean, I think the minutes should say directors votes, yeas, nays, and motion passed or didn't pass. and that if people wanna see it, they actually go to the video.
So-
But because doing a summary like this sometimes does a disservice because people will read these and actually go to the video to hear the entire discussion.
It has the voting on the minutes.
The voting's on
But what
here.
is the Brown Act requirement?
So no,
Because
you
have to
can
use
choose
your-
how thorough your minutes
Okay.
are. So we amended the policy just a couple years ago, maybe 2 years ago, to go to these somewhat more abbreviated minutes. I'll call them action minutes. And we amended the policy to reflect that. If the board would like to actually include just a small statement at the beginning of these minutes, that these are action minutes, they do not reflect the totality of the conversation, please refer to the YouTube video on record. My only hesitation with that is that's working great right now. In 30 years, I don't know where YouTube's gonna be, if our videos are gonna be available. We record them. They're being recorded now, they'll be converted tomorrow, tomorrow likely, they'll be uploaded to YouTube and they'll be available
Good
for as
question.
long as somebody's hosting them. You know, through that
But I
system.
think that makes a
But we
better
can change it
record.
if something,
Yeah.
if the practice changes, then we change the disclaimer, so.
Yeah.
This is how we're doing it now,
Yeah.
so it makes sense.
I think it makes sense to have that statement on there.
Okay.
And I think it would help
Technology moves
the
forward,
person
not
who's
backwards.
reading it, that these are not detailed minutes. But going back to, this paragraph, I think your recommendation, general manager, to add, after budget and financial model, would be acceptable to me, so I don't know about,
Yeah, we agree, we all agree
cause I
with
think
that.
then it does reflect what was discussed. So I'll make a motion that, the minutes of the, November 7th meeting be approved with the stated, correction.
I'll second.
We have a roll call, please.
Directors Logan,
Aye.
Giardini,
Aye.
Ardonish,
Aye.
Pearson,
Aye.
and Peterson is absent.
Okay. All right, that motion passes. Now we have, the item that I think Director Giardini, you wanted to pull, regarding the, budget amendment, the, out of area or out of county, assignments.
I just kind of have a question, so I understand, so we took in $128,250. And $55,000 of that went to pay for fire department overtime that occurred over here. And then $45,000 goes to the fire fund line item because that's the wear and tear on the fire truck that gets assessed for being sent out of area. I mean, how did that figure come up?
Yes, it's a rounded off, rounded the billing for the engine hours.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that's a wear and tear on our vehicle.
it's an established billing rate that that when we enter this contract with Cal OES, our type of engine, whether it's our engine or somebody else's, has a fixed rate per hour.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. So you're asking how do we get reimbursed and what the rate is that we get reimbursed at, or what we did with the money that we received?
The $45,000 is going to the fire fund line, transfer to reserve asset replacement. So I'm just asking that $45,000 that gets billed out or we receive in, it's because it's considered wear and tear on our vehicles?
It's an hourly rate that the state reimburses us
Versus us.
for the use of the vehicle.
Okay,
So it essentially saves them from having to buy vehicles, which Cal OES, Office of Emergency Services,
Mhm.
they have a fleet of vehicles. But that system is kind of dying off. Not as many departments are willing to take those vehicles and then supply the personnel. So they are going with their vehicles, and that's the reimbursement rate to use our vehicles on those state fires.
okay.
And this is, by the way, it's just a recommendation, the $45,000, it's recommended, we billed amount close to that, it wasn't exactly 45,000, I just wanna say 44,600 or something like that we billed on those 4 incidents for the engine. And so consistent with how you applied those funds last year, it's recommended that money go back to asset replacement.
Okay, so then the $28,250 is going to fire fund future operating costs, operating account. And so that covers what?
That's just the money on top of those other two costs. So in other
Right,
words,
no, but what does that money get used for?
we just we keep that, that, going back to the fire financial model, remember, we
Yeah.
knew we had a deficit in the out years and we were saving money in these early years.
Mhm.
That's adding more money to the same line item for future operations.
So how
We,
come
we,
it-
we track that, and it shows up in our summary fund balance page on the budget.
So, okay, so it's like a CFD fund where we're tracking it to then
It's not
offset.
Like a
fu-
bank account, it's like a savings account.
It's just, it's
Right,
only,
because it's only for your department, so it's not, I didn't mean it as that you can share it with other departments, but so it's not going into asset replacement. I'm wondering, I guess my question is, why is it not going into asset replacement?
it could. So these are, you can decide where it goes.
Uh-huh,
In the, this line item, future fire operations, was created a few years ago to be a depository for any excess money that came in the early years of this 24/7 operation to be used for later years when the deficit was expected. And so, this board, this district created that. You have total control of how that money goes. If you wanna make that go away in 2 weeks, you can do so. And
okay,
push that money back into just the fire fund balance. But this $28,000 was on top of.
there are
the-
expenses.
Yeah, our expenses, if you include the engine cost as an expense.
Okay, so I'm thinking, and I just wanna make sure my thinking is correct, that the 28,250, rather than putting it into the asset replacement fund specifically, if we keep it in this operating fund, we can use it anywhere, including the asset replacement fund when the time comes we need to use it, versus if we stick it in the asset replacement fund, we couldn't pull it out and then put it somewhere else. Is my
Okay,
thinking
so
correct?
yeah, based on the way we operate it, that's correct. You have more flexibility. Just keep in mind, even the asset replacement fund is not externally controlled. You could decide, not today, because it's not on the agenda, but you could decide in 2 weeks that you wanted to move money to asset replacement for something else, because it was created by our own policies.
Okay.
It's not regulated from a state, like a state mandate or
Well,
something.
no, I like that fact that it's more easily movable to where we need it, and so I just wanted to make sure I had it right in my head.
Yes, and it wouldn't preclude you from putting it to asset replacement down the road.
Right, or other places if it was needed. Okay, got it.
Or taking money out of asset replacement and putting it in the fire fund.
Okay, I didn't think we could,
Yeah, I didn't know.
yeah, because when we had that fire truck that
Yeah.
was 3 ladders,
You
we
could-
couldn't take money out.
You could make that policy.
So, I think you might be confusing
Yeah.
we used the capital funds have to
That's
follow
different, yeah.
have to follow the.
That's
the impact.
replacement.
But asset replacement funds, our problem is not having enough, right? That's why we wanna push more. That's the big challenge we have in the fire fund is a very small asset replacement fund balance. And so, pushing money there is gonna provide more security down the road.
Maybe this will help. Asset replacement is the replacing of existing equipment.
Right,
The capital fund is purchasing new equipment,
new equipment,
additional, not just new, but additional.
equipment. And so, and the future operating account is just something that we could put into the capital fund, or we could put into the asset replacement fund. It's
Yes.
sort of a fund we could put anywhere,
Correct.
more or less. Okay, I just
Its
want,
intent was though to cover future deficit operations.
okay. Got it. Thank
Any
you.
further discussion?
No, I just was
Would you like
having
to
a
make a
brain
motion?
fart. That we approve consent, agenda item D or C? Let me go back.
Let's see.
C.
Okay, I'll second the motion. So we have a motion made by Director Giardini to approve consent agenda item number C, the budget amendment for the 2023 fire out of county assignment, and seconded by myself. So can we have a roll call, please?
Directors Giardini,
Aye.
Logan,
Aye.
Cardonish.
Aye.
Pearson. Aye. And Peterson is absent.
Okay, all right, so I think that covers our consent agenda, so we'll move to our business agenda. Item number A, resolution number 23-2023 and 2023-2024, the state mandated inspection report. So with that, I think we have Chief Peterson, who's going to lead us on this discussion.
Yes, good evening and thank you. So back in 2016, just to give you a little background on this, the state mandate. In 2016, up in Oakland, they had a fire called the Ghost Ship Fire. It was a devastating fire that wound up killing 36 people. At that point, there was a state congressman or senator that proposed a bill and wanted to require fire departments to report their inspections to the state. Essentially, it got scaled down a little bit, and what it wound up being is an inspection program that specified some specific type occupancies, and those specific type occupancies are schools, hotels, motels, and then care facilities. And what we have to do is go in and inspect those facilities annually and then file a report to our governing body. That has to be done annually. And so that's what this mandate is all about, is starting the process of reporting to the board and pursuant to the Health and Safety Code section and the Senate Bill, I think it was 1205. Yes. So the purpose is to bring the inspections to this board, passed by resolution, and I believe you have a copy of the resolution. And through that resolution, we will report annually. If they increase in number, we'll give you that report also. But we have currently 18 state mandated residential educational activities. Of the 18, there are roughly 12 residential apartment complexes, those types of things. And we have 4 schools, don't mess up my math here, and then 2 residential care facilities, which add up to the 18. That's this year, we have completed all of the inspections. That's 100%. And we keep those filed in an Excel drive, and we keep the actual template for each one of those inspections in a file that can be viewed if we ever have a situation with one of those structures where we can show we actually did the inspection, what the corrections were, when they corrected them, those types of things. So that is the intent of this inspection program. And we would ask the board that they consider the resolution and adopt this as basically a state mandated inspection program that we will present to the board annually at this time. They do recommend that we do it during the budget cycle. But I would prefer to do it about halfway, midpoint in November. It gives us time throughout the summer to be able to get through the schools when the children aren't in the schools, to be able to do the inspections, have them correct it, and come back and review them as the school year starts. So that's kind of why the timing is now. With that, let's see. Additionally, it also says that we can charge for these inspections. And I would ask the board if they're willing to have staff to go back and present a fee schedule. I have a preliminary fee schedule on what that cost would look like, and it would be a one-time fee that would be required of each inspection to cover the costs of the engine companies going out and doing the inspection, and then the admin time and a variety of other costs that we incur.
So one time, it'd be an annual,
Annual,
every time the fees, every time an inspection takes place,
Annually, yeah,
right? Every time something's inspected. it would-
correct.
Each inspection, because if you do the initial inspection, find deficiencies, I'm assuming you're gonna give a
would have to
certain
go-
period of time in which to correct those deficiencies, you're gonna have to go back out.
Correct,
So you would charge a second time.
correct.
And so on here, you have listed for the fire engine rate, the captain, engineer, firefighter, so 3 people go out on each call?
Inspection, yes.
Oh, so 3, okay, so 3 people go out on
Yeah.
each call.
So
So
for
that,
example, in a facility like Vineyard Hills Care
Mhm.
Facility down there, that's a large facility. It would take one person an entire day to actually go through there and do what they need to do. Takes an engine company less time. Typically, they break up into groups, go out with the maintenance staff of the facility, and then they can divide and conquer essentially and come back, consolidate their notes, put it into the report, and then give the corrections or approval based on what they find.
okay, so then just the total reimbursement rate should be $293.96 slash an hour per hour.
Well, yeah, the hour, we could take that out of there. but-
No, it belongs in there.
Yeah.
Well, so the issue, we haven't, we'll have to, before you can set the rate, you'll have to hold a public hearing to consider
Oh,
modifying the
okay.
thing. And we can discuss this further at the time, but we could get some direction from you. What we kind of did is average, okay, what are these take? Some of these inspections are gonna be quicker, some are gonna take longer. Fire chief says, well, it's probably an hour on average. The ones that are long or ones that have got a lot of corrections will have to go back and do a second inspection. So if we have rather than charging it, if we charge a fee per hour, then the fire department has to maintain a log of how much time they spent. So we can generate a bill to those to those properties. If we establish a fixed fee based on the average cost, it can just be a flat amount. But would be imposed each time an inspection occurs. So in the case of a complex, look, let's say Vineyard Hills, as an example. The crew was out there, it was a lengthy inspection, and maybe it took longer than an hour. There were corrections, they need to come back a month later, 2 months later, re-inspect, maybe that's more abbreviated, maybe it's only a half hour, because we're looking at the problem areas. There's two fees that would be billed in that scenario, but it probably captures our costs, because they were there too long once and maybe too short the next time.
Go ahead.
Do other fire departments charge for the service?
Yes, I would say the majority of fire departments charge for inspections.
And then is this the first time you have 100% rate of inspection?
I'm sorry,
Is this the first time that you were able to do the 100% rate of inspection?
yes, with the apartments, we've not reached out and done the apartments in previous years. This year, we've gotten all the apartments done.
Thank you.
So do you kind of have a checklist of what you go through in terms of what you're going to be looking for that can be made available to folks in advance?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I would think that some people would want to make sure that they are compliant with
Yeah,
fire
absolutely.
codes.
We have a few more notification, or not notifications, property owners to get information from. As soon as we collect that information, we'll do a mailing prior to next year's. Give them the actual inspection sheet. It's exactly what I did in my previous employment. Sent out a notice that said, this is what we're looking for, please go out, get all the stuff taken care of. And a lot of times they meet us with those inspection sheets and say, I think we've covered all of this. And there's maybe some minor tweaks that we don't really even have to go back out at. They can take a photograph of it, send it to us, and we're done.
And some corrections can even take place right then and there, if there's,
Yeah,
Right.
you know, exits blocked with a bookshelf, that
Yeah.
can just be moved over,
yeah.
something like that.
Then the other question I have is regarding billing and accounts receivables. Who's managing that?
Yeah, well, this isn't set up yet, but it would, to invoice it, the information would need to come from fire to the finance department to generate and. to
Okay, so
generate
you don't have
invoice.
that system set up yet?
We're not billing for this right now.
Okay.
Oh, just speaking of that, are you guys gonna include the fee for whatever time finance departments? Because I know you're getting charged for it, so.
Correct, yeah, and that's,
So I wanna make sure.
that would be my recommendation, is to have the board direct staff to go back, look at what the total fee, this is just the fire department.
Yeah, so you wanna,
And we want to include all the aspects of what it would cost to actually do the program.
Administration costs, basically.
Any other questions or comments?
Well, just don't make it 293.96 like.
Make it 294.03.
Yeah, we can round that.
Yeah.
And we are, since these locations all have utility accounts, we could, we're billing right now. Cause we're not running a miscellaneous accounts receivable module on our accounting system. But as time goes on, there's more value in considering that, but since all of these locations are receiving district utility service, we're able to add the costs onto the district utility bill and collect it through that billing
Okay,
system.
that's good.
So it wouldn't have to be, it's somewhat more simplified, but we still need to make sure we have communication
Yeah.
and, records of what has taken place.
Any other comments? Are we ready to make a motion on this particular item?
And so in the motion, you guys want directions for the review of the fees as well.
Yeah, just real simple, like as presented or however you like.
Look, I'll make the motion that we adopt the resolution number 23-2023, accepting the 23-24 California State Fire Marshal mandated inspection report, as well as have the staff move forward with looking at the fees for these inspections and come back with a recommendation to the board.
I'll second.
Yeah, so we have a motion from Director Fardanish, seconded by Director Giardini. May we have a roll call, please?
Directors Fardonish,
Aye.
Giardini,
Yes.
Logan,
Aye.
Pearson,
Aye.
and Peterson is absent.
Okay, so that motion passes. General Manager's report.
Yeah, just a small number of additional items beyond what I sent you earlier or over the weekend. We did receive about 1.5 inches of rain at the wastewater treatment plant Saturday morning. So after being kind of skunked for the first several days of that little system, like it was a dry, right, no rain at all for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, pretty impressive. I mean, it pales in comparison to some of the storms we received last year, but during the drought years, this would have been the biggest storm of the year. But really interestingly, and I only note this because you'll probably hear me continue to talk about it over the course of winter, groundwater levels at the Selby Pond site rose 6 inches within the first 2 days after the storm. So that is something that is very unexpected. We should be at the lowest groundwater levels of the year in the late fall. And really in past years, it's only been after the rivers really been running before groundwater levels began to rise. But that does just show us how much water is in the underflow of the Salinas River and the tributaries. You might have noticed that some of the creeks around here have had water in them all summer and up and continuing. So we're expecting challenges at Selby in terms of percolation and maybe even the ability to discharge. You may recall we have limits. When the groundwater reaches a certain height, we can no longer discharge water. So we've prepped our spray field at the wastewater treatment plant in the event that we really don't have a lot of other options. I'm not expecting to use those right away, but we're entering this wet season with groundwater that is as high as it was in January last year, and we've only had one little storm. So really that's really has little to do with the rain on Saturday and a lot to do with 45 inches of rain last year.
So damned if it rains and damned if it doesn't.
Just spread it out nice, 22 inches a year, year after year after year, we'll be happy as a clam. And then just a couple other items. You should have received the holiday dinner invitation from Carrie yesterday. Yeah, so please RSVP to her with your dinner selections. That's again on December 7th, 2 weeks from Thursday.
But why did we get a withdrawal? from
Yeah,
you
that-
then?
Oh.
Thank you.
Is that not meant for us? Did you know, you're not asking?
Because
us?
I forwarded I meant to forward to my wife, asking her what.
I did that, I saw that, I was like, that's a wife question.
Asking her if she wants salmon or mutton. That's just a case of multitasking is sometimes not your best friend.
We
So-
all called him out on it.
Yeah, so like- People are like, what? Why do I have to have mushroom ravioli?
He wanted to keep the steak for himself.
No, my wife doesn't eat beef, so I didn't say that. Yes,
I only
next
laugh.
time I'm just gonna decide for her and stuff.
You're better off sending the reply all email, that's a safer.
I'm surprised you guys, everyone was able to read it so quickly. I like this when they hit it like.
Those emails brings it to everybody's attention a lot quicker than had you just not said anything.
No, it did
No,
not.
I just said Jeff would like to recall.
And it
Jeremy showed me how to do the recall.
That's
and I
how we're
was-
supposed to be able to do
Yeah,
it.
I thought
It
so.
showed that you attempted to recall,
Yeah,
but
it's
it
just
did
a-
not, it was very unforgiving.
Oh,
It did not allow you to do that.
well.
Yeah.
It's
So
like when the
I-
judge tells the jury to forget the comment.
Now calls a bunch of attention to it. Okay, well, there you go. She's having salmon. And just a reminder that Thursday and Friday is Thanksgiving. Well, happy Thanksgiving, but our district office is closed for Thanksgiving. on Thursday and Friday.
Any update about the engineer position?
Well, we continue to recruit. We've received more, we've only had a very small applicant pool. I did meet with another candidate on Friday. With I guess, I say a candidate, I guess it's the second candidate I met with, so. But the first one was months ago, and that person, you know, a couple months ago. Early October, I guess it wasn't, feels like a long time ago. Is no longer interested. So, yeah, we have one candidate that's gonna come back in a week and a half to meet with some other staff members and they've submitted some, you know, so we're kind of looking at this other candidates.
Are they
But-
out of the area or they're locally?
The candidates from out of the area, but they have local ties, very local ties.
I just don't, both my kids had headhunters after them because nobody will move in from out of the area because of cost of living here. Because it's so high, and so.
It's very challenging. It's very challenging, you know, yeah, it's very challenging and it's gotten much worse over the past couple of years with the housing prices gone kind of crazy. So yeah, I think we're all in trouble. It's not a Templeton CSD problem, it's a bigger
No,
one.
it's a bigger problem.
And but just talking to my peers and, well, particularly in engineering is in real hot demand. And I mean, for example, the city of Paso Robles has been recruiting for a city engineer for months and months. They can, I just looked today, they're on a continuous recruitment as well. And we sent out the flyer for the district engineer position to every registered civil engineer in San Luis Obispo County, in southern Monterey County, and in northern Santa Barbara County. That generated 0 applicants. Although I got feedback that said, oh, it's a really nice flyer we got in the mail, yeah. So, I mean, we're really, I mean, thinking the same thing that you were, that we were gonna have a really hard time getting somebody to relocate given the cost of housing. But we've hit everybody who's in commutable distance.
But our water budget is good, why don't we increase the pay?
That's something the board would have to consider.
It hasn't been brought to the board.
No, you're right.
Is there any contacts with Cal Poly and maybe their alumni network?
Oh, I was gonna say, you don't want a brand new student.
That's right.
Yeah, we could investigate whether there's a
Cause they have their,
post-graduation
like,
career support.
inner boards and stuff that alumni, they post jobs and things like that.
Yeah, we are an engineer-rich community, to be honest, but in talking to my peer, people, matter of fact, I went to I guess it was 2 weeks ago tomorrow, to an open house that MKN, a local engineering firm, had posted in San Luis Obispo, and there was a lot of folks there, and everyone's really struggling to get private sector, public sector, to get seasoned engineers.
What is the cost of a private, what's the salary for the private engineer with the same experience? level?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's gonna be a bit more all over the place.
What's Paso offering?
Basically, for a city, for a public, basically the same as us. It's like, I think their top step is about $1,000 more.
Well,
a year.
that's why they haven't gotten any.
The struggle right now.
You can't use the student loan forgiveness as a
No.
selling point, because assuming they've already paid off that.
So, yeah, more to come. Like I said, we do have one applicant that we're looking at now.
Any other questions for the general manager? Yes.
Can you give us any updates on the project for the North Sea water intake, the Creekside Branch? Has there been any changes, updates?
I can give you two updates on two topics that are not super related. But they're both related to that project, they're not related to one another. You might recall that that our existing Nasi turnout location had some erosion during the January storms. And the county, the flood control district came to us and said, would we be willing to participate in a primarily FEMA funded study on how best to protect that? And they would, as a part of that study, could analyze soil conditions there and at our proposed location. And it, there's a small chance of this, but it may work out that that relocating that turnout to our proposed location is a lower cost alternative than protecting the turnout to current location. Because we had erosion over the pipeline. The High River washed away some of it. It didn't wash out the pipeline. We didn't lose service, but we have now some sections of exposed pipeline on our, I'll call it a service line, the line that tees off the main Nasi line, not the main line. That we're participating in that, and there's a kickoff meeting on that project here next Wednesday with the consultant the county hired. They're running that project. The county applied for the FEMA funds and they're going to be reimbursed. So they're running that project. But we're going to visit with that team both those locations. As a result of this work, we should at a minimum get soils information from the new location. Like, is it possible that location that we've identified as a preferred location, it's possible that there could be some challenges there too. So we want to take advantage of this geotech work that's going to be done the county's funding. So that's
Can you
one.
clarify what you mean by the new look? What is the current? new
Yes.
look?
Oh, I'm sorry, the location, the current location is south of the Vineyard Bridge. The Nasi pipeline runs along the east side of the river in this area. And our current current pipeline from the Nasi pipeline is south of the Vineyard Bridge by a fair amount, maybe a half a mile south. And then it crosses underneath the river and surfaces at the Selby site. There's a large piece of infrastructure there. If you've been out there, that's elevated out of the floodplain. That's what we call our turnout for Templeton's water. That's how we take water out of the Nasi system and put it to the Selby site, which is how we operate it today. The new or the proposed location is off of Vaquero Road, about 2 miles south and directly east of the district's 50 or so acres that we call the Creekside property, where the project is intended to be built. The Nasi Recharge Recovery Project.
North of the Finley Family Farms, so we're not on the Finley Family Farms anymore.
We're still working, no, so right, you may recall, we looked at a few sites, a few crossing locations on both sides, and including the Finley Family Farm. So there's our property stretches a pretty good distance, and there's a few locations that could work there. But we have with the property owner that we received authorization to make an offer on, so stop there. We have the property owner is agreeable conceptually, but they have a leasehold. They have a sand mine operator that according to the sand mine operator, it took about 10 years to get permitted to operate sand. And they're very reluctant to enter into the type of agreement that would be necessary to allow us to have access under that property. Although they won't say hard no. They've asked for more information, and we've asked the surveyor and along with some engineering help to show a conceptual schematic that shows where the pipeline is, what elevation it is at each location, the locations under the sand mining operation. And you might recall that we had a tentative location early on, that was maybe directly, maybe the most ideal theoretically, but after we saw the damage from the January storms, we deviated from that tentative location and pushed it further north, for a number of reasons. One of which was to get further away from the sand mining, location, but it's still that easement, if we were to acquire it at that location, would still be on the property where sand mining occurs, or I don't know if it ever did this year, but it's permitted to occur with that leaseholder. So it's a,
sand mining permit has a certain depth that they can mine
yes,
to. And so you would have to show that you're going below that
Way
depth
below.
with a substantial difference.
It was my understanding that we were also gonna survey, like a Plan B
we
location.
did.
Oh, there was a survey,
Yes. Mhm.
and what?
We have that, and that, the property owner there, that property owner has expressed a willingness to work with the district, but we don't have a formal offer with the neighboring property owner.
Is that just because it hasn't been presented to the board yet?
Or to them, yeah, to either. But I think I wanna make sure, since we're gonna get this, geotech information out of this county study. It's not the end of the world, but I wouldn't wanna buy an easement that we don't ever use, and so if we learn something out of this, geotech analysis, that maybe that location isn't as good as we originally thought, it could,
The
play a.
geotech analysis- I'm sorry to interrupt you, go ahead.
Yeah, so what's happened is the river, the pipeline, the Nasi project now wants to look at every inch of the pipeline. What happened in the south part of south of Atascadero, between Atascadero and,
Santa Margarita.
yeah, that location, I guess it's, in that vicinity, the river. During that January 9th event, the river took about 60 feet of the soils to the side. And so there's been and we have a not that dissimilar condition near Vaquero, where the riverbed is really close to Vaquero and the pipeline runs under Vaquero. It's not 60 feet, there was water 15 feet away from the pipeline location during this past storm event. So we want to make sure that whatever we do doesn't get washed away in some flood event down the road. And so while we can still pursue, while we still want to secure the easement, I think having this information available to us about where the ideal location is, we should take that into
Does
consideration.
that include
Yeah.
though the Plan B location in that analysis?
Yeah,
Oh, it will?
it's, yeah, because it's right adjacent.
So
Okay,
they're gonna do the
so
whole
it's gonna
thing.
do like a big overall.
Well, I'll know more Wednesday. We're gonna
Okay.
walk the sites.
So
on
it doesn't
Wednesday.
make sense to pursue that if we are not going, it's kind of the flip from what you're saying, it's no point in pursuing an analysis if it only encompasses a portion of an easement that we may not even get because of.
Yeah, I think this is a large, so really the reason FEMA is able to fund it is to look at protection options for the existing turnout location and alternatives that could exist. And so we'll have to see how much detail we can get, but the county staff is pretty concerned about a lot of sections along the river after this storm event. I mean,
So
just-
they're going through and I'm gonna use the term potholing. I'm assuming a segment of soils all the way along the line and then doing a profile of
Well,
the soils.
So there's two different issues. We have a specific project for just the Templeton turnout that's being
Because
done
of
right
the
now.
salty, right.
Because of our existing turnout washout. The county is making another application for about $1 million study for the entire length of the pipeline.
So
But we're gonna get some information on the existing turnout and the proposed location as a part of the current effort the county's undertaking.
So, but when you say proposed location,
I'm talking about the stuff over off Vaquero.
that, okay, that
Directly
was
to-
approved right now to engage in
Yes.
the easement.
Yes,
So that does not include the potential Plan B location that we haven't engaged in, like easement discussions.
yeah, we've not.
So there's not gonna be any analysis done to that.
Well, those locations abut one another.
Yeah, so what I think what happens, because when they do water studies, is if you've got let's say a linear line and they drill here, 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 and here. They do a profile of that whole area. And so even, they may not drill exactly at our easement site, but they're gonna do a cross-section profile that's gonna tell us, you know, so if our sites are adjacent, basically, we're gonna have the same soils. It may be, or it may be so jumbled, who knows, but they're gonna make some geologic assumptions on that.
Yeah, I think once we moved from the initial location, which was. We had selected because there is a valve that's accessible at that location. Once we moved further to the north from there, there are a number of other benefits, and hopefully this will give us some reinforcement that our chosen site is not vulnerable. Whether it's the current chosen site or the Plan B site that's adjacent.
So why are we not moving forward? I mean, if we're having a hard time with this third party, why are we not moving forward? Looking at other options and pursuing other options right now? I mean, why are we, to me, it's like we're kind of wasting time.
Well, I mean, not making progress.
Yeah.
Actually, I've got it. We owe the leaseholder an exhibit that shows the profile of this pipeline. You know, they're not all but no, they didn't say no. They'd like to have more information before they say no. I'm not holding my breath that they're gonna come around.
So,
Okay, then
so I
why are
guess
we
it's,
not
we're
going-
extinguishing resources then on like a losing battle when we should be using
Yeah.
those resources
So
to
why are we
explore
not
the
moving forward
Plan
with
B
other
locations.
options?
Yeah, we can.
So, okay, that would be.
Cause the FEMA, I mean, theoretically, between the study and getting the money approved and all of that stuff, that's gonna take a couple
Yeah,
of years
what's
down
the
the road,
timeline?
but
And I'm not confident that we're gonna get FEMA to pay for this whole thing.
we could have wall because the easement's not gonna
I
go.
think you're just looking for information from FEMA. But I think there's a general feeling and that, you know, we've talked, initially, we talked about having a couple different options and each option, we chose the option that, was being pursued when Tina was here because it was the least expensive, the way in which the pipeline was going to be connected. But it seems like there's been some challenges there with having that property subleased. And now it's not just the property owner, but it's that sublease, that tenant that's also gotta approve it. And it seems like that's not gonna be really a viable option.
Especially
Even
when
though
we're
they're
paying a
asking for more
premium on a
information,
nothing- yeah.
It seems like it's taking
Yeah.
an extra length of time to where maybe perhaps, given all this time that we've experienced, would have been just the same cost if we pursued option B. And I think that's what we're looking at.
The other thing is we could go get a soils report.
Yeah.
It is, no, I think one,
And-
you know,
and, I mean, we're here, we're waiting for
Yeah.
this soils report from the county and FEMA that may take years.
Yeah,
to
that's
get.
what's the
And it's
timeline?
like,
I don't, I mean, if
you
it's
know,
2
a
years,
soils
I don't know.
report, They will
yeah,
just.
I wanna
say
be, I wanna make sure so this item isn't on the agenda
Yeah,
for
yeah.
discussion. I
No,
wanna make
yeah.
sure that your
Yeah.
comments are brief, we're not making any decisions.
Thank you for that reminder. So maybe that can be for another,
And then, I'm sorry, so you said that the FEMA will pay, or Canada will pay for the study. How about, do they pay for actual construction as well, or?
If FEMA approves it, so one of the outcomes, although I'm not holding, I don't think this is an expected outcome. But it's possible that the study will determine that relocating the turnout is a more cost-effective means than trying to add protection at the current site. That would be like a pie in the sky, like a ideal scenario.
Okay.
Cause that would actually.
May I suggest, since it's not on the agenda, that maybe it's something to consider in the future agenda, since you are having this meeting coming up.
Yeah,
I think it warrants like a discussion and a further discussion of what's going on tonight. Just properly agendized
Yeah, I
in
agree.
the next meeting or two,
Sure.
so that we have direction coming into the new year.
because then you can ask all your questions.
Yeah, then we can have an in-depth discussion and
On it.
give some direction or something, but I think it's worth at least talking more about it.
would agree.
Yeah, maybe when you get down to the, I'd like to address the board on a number of the tentative future items, because there's a lot, and a lot of them have changed since the last meeting. And I wanna walk you through that, and then maybe you can help me prioritize these things, cause you know, what's most important to come before you, so I'm putting my time on the ones that are of more value.
Thank you.
Anything else for the general manager? Okay, then we'll move on to, I just lost my.
Oh,
computer.
it's a committee reports.
Committee reports, so there's
Bracket.
two in the, in your packet, for you to review, the admin and finance and, RAC. And then directors' reports or comments on any meetings that you attended?
Oh, wait, did you miss the activity update reports?
Well, wait a minute, back to committee reports. I have a question on
Okay.
the administration finance committee report. So,
Okay.
I listened to the meeting and, so the finance and admin is making a policy recommendation on how to allocate funds. And those funds are gonna affect well, 4 departments, but 2 departments, basically 2 departments' funds. And so I think that both of those departments, the fire committee and the park and rec committee, should review the administration's recommendations and add their recommendations in too, whether they agree or disagree with the fire department's or with the admin's recommendation. Because it's affecting both of those departments specifically. The other thing was that there was some recommendation, and I was a bit confused in the policy stating that the funds versus specifically stating park and recs and fire department. And when I listened to the committee meeting, the members of the meeting said, well, it's obvious it has to come from Parks and Rec. And so if it's obvious to them that it's coming from Park and Recs, then that should be put in their administration minutes. And then they backtracked, but then they didn't, and so it was very confusing. And then, what's going on? Then there were some emails that came into question that I've never seen, and so I'm wondering what those were about. And, that you know, there were comments about there's no denying where this money's gonna come from. But I think that, I guess my big point is, let's go to the big point, that if admin is suggesting a recommendation on how funds for different departments are going to be affected, that those department subcommittees should review the admin's recommendation before it comes to the board, so they could have their input too. That only seems fair.
So,
Because, you know, if the fire department committee is looking at giving up some money of their part of their budget to go towards drainage and lighting, or Parks and Rec is, or if it's only coming out of one, or should it come off the top before it gets allocated to the 2? That's a big discussion. That's a big policy issue.
But there was no
So-
decision made.
maybe we can come up with a couple of alternatives for you. So one, that policy has, should come before the board, and maybe as soon as the next board meeting. I think, the policy language and the board could, so one option would be the policy language could be looked at by the board, and if you believe it needs more study, could be directed to a committee to study it further, or to suggest recommendations. I'd have to put some thought into it, maybe even consult with some help. If this policy committee were to, if this policy were to go back to fire and then Parks, Recreation and Solid Waste for review. At that point, you'd have all 5 board members involved in the policy formation outside of a board meeting. So I just want to make sure that we don't get to the position where we've essentially accomplished we've attempted to get input from all board members outside of a board meeting. I just want to confirm that that's not a problem. But we would, between the 3 committees, we have all.
Publicly noticed, so it's
Well,
not,
it's, no decision has been made at the finance.
right, it would be a recommendation.
It was basically a recommendation to say that it's an issue, and so it needs to come before the board for a decision. That's what was
Because when I
discussed.
listened to the fire committee thing twice now,
The admin committee.
I'm sorry. thank you.
Admin, finance and admin.
Finance and admin, thank you, she corrected me, that, there was definite language in there that it's obvious that this money is gonna come from Park and Recs. Oh, yes, there was.
Well, but but
I
no
listened to
decision
it.
was made.
I understand no decision was made, but if we're relying on the videotape to substantiate what went on, I think Parks and Rec has a right and the fire committee has a right. Maybe Jeff brings up a good legal point, but I think that just think.
Could they not give their recommendation too? What would stop them from giving a recommendation on?
Yeah, I don't know. I just want to make sure before
Because
if that's your decision, I want to make
The
sure. that's-
finance and admin committee did it at the request of the board, so why
Yes.
couldn't the other committees do the same type of advisement?
Well, it would be, because each committee member is present here.
Yeah, but the
It would be, it wouldn't
head
matter.
departments are not,
It would only delay,
but
it
the
would
head of
only
departments
Yeah,
cannot.
no, that's.
it would only delay having it done if it went back to each.
But I'd rather
committee.
have it done right than to rush through it, and I'd rather have input from the heads of each department and their insight, cause I value, they're the feet on the ground. I'm at the director
So-
level, but
I did, when
Well,
this item came before the committee, this item's been before the Finance and Admin Committee on two separate meetings. The first meeting that it came before, we made sure that both Parks and Recreation and Fire had representation at the committee, at the committee meeting. There was a general consensus by the committee at that time, and then at the second meeting, the more recent one, I had drafted language for their review.
Right, but this is a quote, Park and Rec Fund, the fire fund is a sacred crowd and not to be touched. And so that's a direct quote on the,
It's not in the policy that I wrote.
no, it's not in the, but
it's the meeting minutes,
oh,
it's
the
the
meeting
recorded.
minutes, it's the recorded,
Is that board members?
yes.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing is, you can't just shake your
No,
head.
I'm just.
That's just stating an opinion.
I think,
We're talking,
Oh,
I'm-
okay, excuse
I'm
me.
just saying, it's, you know, that we all say stuff that, you know, could be, you know, misinterpreted
can
or
be-
wrong, whatever, but the bottom line is the policy, and I think it'd be best to just bring it to the board, and all 5 of us gonna be there. And if we want the head of the departments to be here, we could ask, you know, obviously chief is here regularly, and then we could ask Melissa to be here for that meeting as well. And then so that we could have the discussion. I think that would be best instead of just keep going back and forth between the different committees. But, you know, I haven't listened to the video, but, you know, thinking like, it's unfortunate.
I think
things
setting a
that was said.
policy and then implementing the policy is kind of 2 separate things in my head. So yes, at the board level, we'll set this policy, but the interpretation of the words ultimately will fall upon the admin and finance committee, who has essentially stated on a recorded document how they intend on implementing this policy that they've asked the board to set. And that's a little bit concerning, because I too listened to the meeting too, and the intent of the committee is not necessarily reflected into the language of the policy, and ultimately they're implementing it. So we have to think about it 2 separate.
I mean, the finance committee, they're not gonna.
Yeah, we're not
I mean,
implementing
they're always-
finance.
They,
No.
they make the
always-
recommendations
Make
though,
the
the future recommendations that we ultimately vote on,
Yeah.
right? And so,
So
and we
could always
rely
have
heavily on
options.
these committees and how what their recommendations are. And so I see both sides and I understand, but we're just saying, you know, it would be helpful, and maybe the solution is just to ask the head of departments to come at the time that we're voting on this policy and to get the feedback from them as well, but, you know, committees
and-
are a little bit more intimate and allow more.
Well, and I think too, like my job, I constantly tear apart ordinances. I look at word for word, I look for intent behind words, I look how the laws were written. And so when you come to it being, I mean, there's even stated in the minutes that, no, we don't wanna say Parks and Rec because we don't want to bring that to attention. And so, you know, that was stated in there, and so it seems like we're trying to do something under the table, and that really bothers me. And so I feel like, you know, if you make the wording too vague, or to me, to say, well, it's coming out of these funds, but then these funds, when some other future board member looks at it and I'm not here, goes back to the admin, they're gonna say, well, yeah, it was supposed to come straight out of Park and Recs. And I don't know if that was the true intent, and so I'm just saying that I was uncomfortable with this summary, and that if we're going to have a policy update, I think definitely Parks should be here, and, well, Tom's always here, and the fire department here, so that we could get input from them on and look at it and have a broad discussion on it, so that it's understood where those are supposed to come from.
So let me see if I've captured your thoughts. Is it then acceptable that this draft policy come before the board? I'll make sure that it's a time when both Mel Johnson and Tom Peterson are available. And then the board will have the draft policy language in front of you. You can choose, of course, to accept it, to send it back for further study. You could, I think, you know, you could send it to back to the Admin Finance Committee or somewhere else. For the refinement, or the board could make revisions to the policy language before adoption, or tabling, or, you know, or take that under
Maybe this
consideration.
should be tabled until after we have the water allocations in February, March, and then we have a budget hearing, and then that policy could be written. Because it sounds like we're writing a policy now when we don't know how these budgets are being affected. So maybe this policy is coming, we're creating a policy before we look at the big picture of everything.
So, the board can do what you like in terms of when it comes before you. I was responding to a actual motion that was approved by the board to have the Admin and Finance Committee review a policy and bring it back before the end of the year. So that's why it was
I
on
do
the
remember that.
schedule. So obviously, if it comes before you and you don't want to consider it at that time, you're free to push it off, or you'll have a lot of options available. But I can make sure that we've got representation at the staff level at the board meeting when the policy is considered. Just keep in mind, there are I have two policies that were requested. They're related because they're both money issues, but they're quite different. One concerns the CFD funds and the initial use of the CFD funds. And then the other is the property tax allocation.
I personally like to see that come to the board as soon as possible.
Okay,
The
and then,
CFD
but we could
The
look at
CFD
it.
funding, yes, but the property.
But it
tax-
can also be changed too, so it's not carved in stone, so once the policy is established, it can be changed by the board too.
I understand that. The thing is that if I'm not here and somebody looks back at the minutes, so I just want to make sure it's correct. But the other thing we could do is look at the CFD funds and then look at a policy regarding the other stuff afterwards when we have more information or something like that. I don't know. I agree that with our general manager, our board did vote to have it go to the finance committee. I was just, I guess, surprised at the direction affecting two departments without it going back to those departments.
But they were present, those folks were present when this was first considered by the admin and
I
finance. committee.
wasn't part, I mean,
Those but we had an admin finance committee
At
meeting.
this
that was-
last meeting,
No, at when this topic came before the admin and finance committee, I believe it was in August. The most recent one prior to the minutes you're looking at now.
about the policy change regarding the allocation.
Yes,
and Melissa was there.
yes.
Okay, well, I'd still like to have her at the next meeting. And so, just so that, I mean, I think Tom would like to be present if his budget's getting affected. And I think Melissa would like to be present if her budget's getting affected. And I think the board needs to look at all of them holistically.
Yeah, I've noted to make sure that we bring this when, I think we've already got a duty to bring it before the end of the year, so I have 2 more meetings to bring it. It's right now tentatively slated for the next meeting, and I'll do my best to make sure both Mel and Tom can be available. And if they can't be available that meeting and they are available the 19th, I'll move it to the 19th.
Okay, that sounds
Okay.
good.
Any other comments under committee reports? Okay, then we'll move to activity updates. Any comments regarding the finance, fire and emergency, park and rec, or utilities?
Parks and Rec, please.
Okay,
I was just looking at the projects for Everest Park Improvement Plan. So it says continues to experience delays. We are hopeful the work being completed by both staff and MIG will result in plans that can be approved by SLO County permitting department. So, I mean, that's has been a while. I mean, is MIG not following through, or have we even sent the plans? So I mean, we haven't sent the plans to this county at this
Yeah,
point.
we went to the
Yes,
county, we got back
Yeah, but
comments,
then we
like
submit the,
30 pages or
yes,
so. of
but
comments.
it hasn't gone back to.
Right, we had the county, after those went back, we got additional comments from County Public Works on the ADA connection at the sidewalk. And the county originally requested that we rip out like a 50 or 60-foot section of sidewalk that's a curb cut that goes to nowhere, goes into like a fence. It should have never been built, but it's there. They wanted us to take that out because our proposed ADA connection abutted it. So we've redesigned that and sent that back to Public Works. They've preliminarily approved the relocation of the ADA access without having to replace that section of sidewalk.
No, wait a minute, back up. So the county backed down on their requirements for the improvements.
Yes, because we no longer take our ADA pathway to that specific location.
So did they cost us extra money? Did we have to redesign?
I mean, no, not really. We're gonna
Okay,
paint,
because
we're
I-
gonna paint an ADA crosswalk on the existing asphalt.
Because I'm doing a skate park in Cambria and we're not extending the sidewalk because we have to go past the utility box. And there's all sorts of sympathy because it's a public park, it's for the community, the supervisors behind it, that we could get all sorts of waivers. So that got eliminated. I wish somebody had told me about this.
Okay, I think we've resolved that issue. Actually, we got communication from MIG just yesterday. There is some hiccups with MIG's organization with the county, and the county insists on having only one point of contact. The county had a MIG had a subcontractor through the engineering company that was the original point of contact with this project, but that person who's local to this county, that person left that firm. And so Melissa was appointed the point of contact, but Melissa doesn't have any of this technical background in terms of getting the project approved. So we've got to work something else out with MIG. We're gonna resubmit the plans. We have one hiccup that's unresolved, which is related to storm drain quality, and we're gonna have to work that out. We can't hold up the rest of the resubmittal. Trying to get that resolved. The county was offering to assist us, but the person's basically ghosting us, and we're not getting a response back from the engineer that was offering originally to assist the county staff member to assist us in resolution.
J.R. Beard?
His name is Troy Barnhart, I think.
Any other questions on the activity reports?
Oh, I'm sorry, so when are you expecting to resubmit it?
I don't know, I mean, Mel's out this week, and so we got an email from MIG just yesterday. So, I mean, it could be as soon as next week.
I mean, I know people down there. Lots, if you need help.
Thank you. I mean, we're gonna have to,
I mean, I was thinking writing to our supervisor, I mean, and see if he will respond. I mean, I'm sure he wants to see improvements in our parks. I mean, if we have to get a little bit, louder, maybe we should, because, I just feel like we've been waiting for this plan approval for, has it been a couple of years now?
we started with MIG in 2021, but part of it was the original submittal ended up with an embarrassingly long list of corrections from the county. Like comments that required correction. So I wouldn't want to place, I don't think it'd be fair to say it's 100% the county's, maybe we hired somebody that, our county is incredibly difficult to work with. And I don't think that's, I think that's widely
That's for
accepted.
that.
I'm sorry?
It's worse than Santa Barbara County. It is we have now surpassed Santa Barbara County's difficulty to work with, according to polls recently.
So, yeah, I don't think that's up for, I don't think that's overly controversial statement to make. And so I think MIG, we may have been naive, and they were in terms of just how difficult it will be to get it through the county's planning approval.
But that's, I mean, they're construction documents.
Right.
And so construction documents have to meet building codes. So they should know the building codes and ADA requirements and all that kind of stuff. So I don't have that much sympathy for MIG.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, we'll move to director's reports and or comments regarding any meetings that you attended on behalf of the district. Okay. Seeing none,
Before you adjourn, can we
you
just
wanna
address?
go through the tentative agenda items
I
and?
do.
Okay.
I do. I want to just highlight a couple of things that are, that may still can change. One, you might recall that as of 2 weeks ago, we were expecting to have for you on December 19th an authorization to place an order for a fire engine. That was intended to follow an application with USDA that would ultimately be the funding arm of the community projects request that we've talked about for 6 months now, 7 months. So our goal in this process is to take all the necessary steps so that if we are awarded the community funding request, we're eligible to use it on an engine that we can order before that formal decision is made on the community projects request. And USDA is willing to align that with us. However, they have a pretty rigid process. And one of the things, when we had a conference call with them last week, and one of the items that we got clarified is because we're kind of doing this out of order. Normally you get the community project request, then follow all those things and get everything, all the I's dotted and T's crossed. And then you could make your purchase or enter in construction. We're trying to follow a parallel path. So one of the things they are requiring is that the board hold a public hearing about the use of these funds. We've not done that. We've not done that related to the community projects funds. So we noticed a public hearing for December 5th. But what they also want submitted as part of this application packet are the minutes from that meeting demonstrating that you held the public hearing. Those minutes wouldn't be scheduled for approval until December 19th. So our application packet to USDA won't go in until sometime after December 19th. So we cannot order the engine. We cannot order the engine and still be assured that the community projects funding funds can be used to pay for that engine until USDA has accepted the application and has agreed that it's complete. It's not overly complex, but there's a lot of information that they required of us, and we're 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through it now. But this public hearing and minutes added some pretty specific timelines. So that's why We've added the public hearing for the engine, and that's why I slid on the tentative list, the ordering the engine from December 19th into your January meeting. Cause it really won't
How
do
come
us,
we can't just send them the YouTube video as proof
Oh.
of the minutes?
we could ask that question. They don't like a lot of,
Digital.
or fuzzy, interpretation. They're following a scripted, yeah,
Has to be approved.
yeah, minutes from the meeting.
Well, the other thing.
Signed by the secretary.
Yeah, I asked for.
Hold a special meeting.
Yeah, but they're probably wanting it signed by the board secretary. Cause then it really makes it official.
Right, but we could hold a special meeting, approve the minutes, and she could sign them.
You could, but I'm not sure it's gonna change a whole lot. It's not gonna get, that we're not likely to get a response from USDA that this is perfect in 24 hours time. And it won't do us. I'm
Could we
sorry,
not have a special meeting to just authorize the purchase order then? Once we get the minutes approved, cause I know that the January 2nd meeting has been canceled,
you could,
but we could throw in another meeting sometime between.
you could, but it still has to be after the USDA has it's not just getting the minutes in. They then have to say that the application meets their, has been reviewed and is satisfactory.
We just have to notice 24 hours to have that
Yes,
special
yes,
meeting.
so that option exists.
I think due to the state of our one engine and the need for the second one, I would think that would be a good reason to have a
so
special emergency meeting.
That would be possible. You could have a special meeting to do that. Anytime after USDA accepts the application packet.
Within 24 hours of their acceptance, that's what I would propose to this board to consider.
Well, we would need to have, bids or the specs with the bid that we're recommending available to you as well. USDA also wants a description of our purchasing plan, and so we're putting that together as well in terms of how we're gonna solicit the bids and make a selection.
Can we not do that as we're waiting for?
We are. We're not gonna do that afterwards, but it's still pending.
So, I mean,
So these items are just tentative, and you're right, the board could call a meeting prior to January 16th if USDA has approved it. I've just listed this here as tentative, I'm just explaining why it was moved from December 19th. A number of other items, so this personnel guidelines and revision of salary schedules, those deal with new laws that took effect and minimum wage that goes up. That has to be done sometime in December. Those might slide to the 19th, they're not complicated. Urban Water Management Plan, we have a public hearing notice that's already out, that item is complete, will go. On-call engineering services agreement, this item, we've reached a tentative agreement with a local engineering firm to assist us during this period of time where we don't have a staff engineer. I wanna keep this on December 5th because this could be helpful.
Get more than one request for proposal out and more than.
I only got one that's willing to do the work. Let's see. We just spoke about the revisions to the strategic financial policies, audit. We were at the admin and finance committee meeting, the audit team told us that we should expect the audit the week of Thanksgiving. It's not here. The soonest it's coming now is next Tuesday. In order to make the December 5th meeting, it'll have to be perfect in our review within 24 hours. There's a great chance that this item is not gonna be on December 5th.
okay.
Cause it's a document that's like this thick and we wanna review it carefully before it goes to you. This AT&T cell site lease probably won't happen, and they're just those cell sites, they're on their own schedule, so that's not set in stone. We do have the public hearing for the community projects funding for the fire engine is set for December 5th. And then we've got a request for some fee waivers from on a parcel. I should say fee waiver is probably a bad word, doesn't even want to pay for some water that went through the meter. There's some complications. I'm trying to have that on December 5th. The investment policy update can come later, the joinder can come later. If need be. Still waiting for TRF on the Templeton Park.
You can push that out till later, a letter of support, it is, well,
Yeah.
it is, but it isn't. But the letter of support is no longer as urgent,
Okay,
but it may come like as a need later down the line. So
anyway,
that doesn't have to happen in December.
so anyway, that's what we're looking at over the next couple of meetings and why that one item slid. And then you asked to have this, some discussion on the easement.
Board reorganization, I thought that went in the first meeting of December. Is it the second meeting?
Your bylaws just say December, but we hold it on the first meeting when it follows an election because there's a makeup change on the board. But this can go either meeting.
Okay, doesn't matter to me, so whatever is easiest for you. I thought it was supposed to go on the first.
Anyway, so that's what we've got, and it's like I said, when I list these as tentative,
I'm sorry, so the policy change for the CFD, where is that?
revisions to strategic financial policies.
Revisions is,
Can we
okay,
maybe separate the
Yeah, can we
CFD and
separate
the
that?
property tax
Yeah,
policy
that would
discussion?
make-
You mean have two different?
Yeah,
Items, yes.
cause I think one can be expedited and the other one might not be, so.
because there's a lot of
It's too
stuff happening on the
confusing.
fifth, so I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, it might be, it might make it too long of a night.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's, if I bring it, so in order to do that, so there'll be a resolution's adopted when you make a change to the strategic financial policy. So if we break that into two, there'd be two separate items, two separate resolutions, two separate.
That's fine, cause they're too
Is that a
specific,
problem?
they're
Yeah.
specific policies.
No, but more important.
Maybe it would
but
make sense to have that discussion at the
that's twice.
16th.
19, I mean, the property tax one issue is the one that was requested by the board. To come in December,
They were both, the recommendation was for review of both the CFD and the property tax.
The fire
Policies.
committee asked for the CFD update for the fire department to come to the board in December. It's just two different issues, so I really would like them separated out.
I would
Okay.
suggest that we put it to the second meeting in December. Both policies.
Both
For
policies?
yeah, because December 5th has got a lot
Well,
of items
I
here.
thought
a lot of those, but a number of the times may not make it for December 5th.
Oh.
I thought that we need to have the CFD discussion on the fifth because of all the, I think that's.
No, I'm sorry, that word community projects funding, that's, maybe you've seen this,
Yeah.
that's the Jimmy Panetta. Federal
Yeah,
appropriations
But
item.
don't we need to have that policy in place? I wanna make sure it's
the
approved.
strategic
before-
plan.
You need to have that policy should be in place before the order of the engine is approved.
Okay, yeah, alright,
Because the policy is coming before
yes,
the board hasn't get adopted, or maybe
Okay.
some of you haven't seen, is intended to show that that we have the funds to pay for the asset replacement on the new engine.
so the USDA doesn't need that policy approved,
No.
right?
I don't think so. But I don't, that work isn't very hard. I can do that for the December 5th meeting. Some of these other items are gonna slide because we're waiting on other things
Okay,
like the audit
that's
or
fine.
whatever, but.
It just looks like there's a lot of items on
There is.
December 5th compared to December 19th is just the board reorganization.
Well, like I said, I think
Almost.
the audit is probably gonna slide,
Yeah.
some of these other ones that we haven't started yet, like the personnel guidelines update. Those kinds of things may need to move forward, but I'm gonna work hard. The urban water management plan will be on there. I'll do everything I can to get the engineering services agreement on there. The community projects funding, public hearing will be on there, and this waiver of fees for water service should be on there. So. The other items can move around, including this other one,
Is that an appeal by a private citizen?
yes,
Okay, just wondering.
Okay, any other comments on the tentative agenda items?
I think it's in Jeff's hands. He'll figure it. He does a good job. He knows what's important. We've given him.
Okay, well, if there aren't any other comments, we'll adjourn the meeting at 8:33.
Thank you.
Thank you.